Hey, everybody, welcome back to the Mosaic Podcast. It's been a little while since I've done one of these because I've been caught up in this other thing that I'm doing, which is 50 conversations with 50 strangers, which is like just exploded somehow. And I miss these. And so I was so happy when my buddy, Vikki Thomas, uh, and I started to talk with each other again. And I said, hey, you had me on your Hit Talks, you had me on your Hope Inspiration, and honest inner truth talks. And why in the heck aren't you on my podcast? And she said, well, I would love to do that. And so let me tell you a little bit about Vikki. Vikki's background is in finance and business in the corporate world. And she also made her success by being a multiple business owner and private property investor. However, she was called to do something more and embarked on a new journey 5 years ago. Her search for meaning and to live her life mission. She is profoundly grateful for the opportunities she's had to reach out to many through the medium of global live events, talks, books, radio, and soon to be television. She is said to be a guardian angel who not only inspires her followers, but energetically heals people all over the world utilizing the quantum field. She brings magic and abundance into people's lives. She is a quantum healer and an intuitive guide. She's the founder of Align Your Life with Magic, a container supporting women from a soul level, which you can find at vikkithomas.com. She's the founder of Hit Talks, a live global platform for hope, inspiration, and transformation, which is www.hittalks.com. And also the founder of Honest Inner Truths, conversations with interesting people to get to ask each other questions that they have to answer. She's done a lot of things. She's made a lot of pivot points. And the Mosaic Podcast is about pivot points and watching and bringing to you people that have done great things and then have made pivots so that we can always, always, always know that where we are is not where we have to be if we don't choose to be there in this moment. So it's with an honor and privilege and pleasure that I introduce you to my beautiful friend, Vikki Thomas. Vikki, welcome to the Mosaic Podcast.
Gracias. Thank you so much, Danny, for having me. And wow, did you remember all of that off by heart? Or
I just have a mind. This morning, I realized I hadn't gotten Vikki's bio, and so I went and searched through all the different places. Boy, it's early in the morning here, so I have a frog in my throat. I haven't been sleeping well, to be honest, lately. And so I've been up a lot. I don't know what this frog in my throat is about, but we're going to get rid of it. So I went through some of your different things and just tried to piece together something so I didn't look like a absolute idiot. And I wanted to make you look like the beautiful being you are.
Well, thank you very much for the amazing introduction. I'm like, oh my gosh.
That's right. That is who you are. Hey, so in order to get some context as to how you came into this world, I always ask people, what did your parents do?
Oh, my mum, believe it or not, obviously from being a housewife during the time that I remember, is that she was a fruit picker. And so, with a lot of mothers, when they had children in our area, we live in the country, we live in Bulmers, so we live in Herefordshire, which is the Bulmers cider apple place. So she used to pick apples. But I remember something is that it was before I was born, but she was the first ever female woman to work in a male industry of a factory.
Wow.
So we also have some factories around here, and I don't know fully, but obviously everyone that worked in the factory were men, and her sister-in-law were the first two females ever to be allowed to work in a factory. So it was all over the news and all over the papers. It just kind of came to me as you said that. But
that's interesting. Isn't it interesting how times have changed? I mean, now, right? I mean, what women were allowed to do in those days and what we have a long way to go still, but what women are allowed to do now, it's very
yeah.
interesting. And how about your dad? What did he do?
Yeah, so I remember again with my dad from the previous, obviously from what I can recall, is he used to be a mechanic, and he had his own car breaking business. I don't know what you call that in America, but it's like where you get all the old cars and you take all the parts out of it, and then you sell the parts, and then you have all the beaten up cars. And it was called Bullingham Car Breakers.
Wow.
So yeah, so that's what he used to do. That's the only kind of it's the only things I can remember him doing, to be honest. I think he worked in an incinerator once, but yeah, that's the kind of recognition that I remember as you asked me that question.
And why is your memory so sparse of those? Did your parents pass away? Were you not with them early on? What caused that? Like my parents both passed away, so I have a lot of blank areas of where my dad was from. I don't even know what he did. I sort of remember, but it's been a 50. July 4th was 50 years for my mom passing away,
Oh my
and
God.
52 years for my dad. Both of them passed away on the same day. So that's a huge part of my life, and so some of that I've just blocked out. But for you, what causes that cloudiness there of memory?
Well, I remember that, just to say, during my younger childhood days. But my parents, from what I can recall from my childhood, is that it wasn't, let's say, easy.
Yeah.
So there was a lot of alcohol. There was a lot of uh, violence, and then there was a divorce, and so the divorce wasn't easy. And children get caught up in the divorce, and I was about 10 years of age, maybe a little bit earlier, when I think it started off getting quite nasty. And I can kind of, I think I energetically blocked that out. But
Yeah,
then when
I
the divorce
understand.
got even worse and worse, and then my dad disappeared off the scene because of the divorce. And then when I was 14, my mum had found another boyfriend, and then went to live with him, and then abandoned me, left me. So there was
Holy
me and
to
my brother.
Oh my
So my
God.
brother, yeah, my brother was 7, I was 14, and we were living in a council house by ourselves, when with no parenting. And so I was trying to, still get to school, still get back, still trying to look after my little brother and do things. And so I think it gave me a lot of strong will.
Yeah, I bet it did. And we know each other a little, and I didn't have any idea of any of that. And it's just so interesting when I ask the question, what did your parents do? It sort of paints a background. And so for the amazing amounts of things that you've done with your life coming from that upbringing, the chances of you doing what you've done with that upbringing are so slim. Most people, many people coming through that would have just fallen apart, gone to, not made a life work. How did you get to the place where you could see that big pivot point, where you could see that in your life, experience that in your life, not have the support? You think of your parents as those people who you can love and support and trust. How did you do it? How did you get to be doing all this, going through all the success that you went through?
I say that it was something inside of me, which was like drive and determination. And when I was leaving, I went to a Catholic school, and there was a nun that used to look after us, Sister Alice, and she was hideous. She was horrible. And I remember, so God forgive me, but
Me too. Me too, for the thoughts that I'm having.
yeah, but it was just I remember when she was leaving, and I was in the final years of school. I didn't go off the rails, but I was one of these children that was able to get my grades but then still mess around.
Right.
So, and it was she, when we left, she wasn't very nice, and she said, "Oh, you'll just come to nothing, Vikki. You'll be pregnant with about 6 children by the
Oh
by the,
my
by the
God.
time you're 17." And it's kind of stuck with me, and a lot of the work that I've done has gone back and forgiven and healed those words, so I say it now with love. But it's very much like there's a drive and determination in a way to prove. And from what I was, everything that I was doing was like, I have to succeed, I have to succeed. And I wanted to have children, I wanted to get married. That was I was desperate to have that path. And I'm blessed, I've got a husband I've been married to for 21 years, and I have an 18-year-old and a 16-year-old. But even in my younger days, I was there. My path is going to have a successful marriage, have two children, not two children, but have children, and make a success of myself. And whatever happens, I'm going to make that happen.
Yeah.
And so I kind of had that drive and determination, but from a very masculine perspective. Now, when I look down from the new person that I've become, I was put on this earth for a reason. I chose to be here. I chose to have an alcoholic mother that left. I chose to have a father that was abusive, and he's in my life now. Everything's forgiven, but at the time, so I'd made that choice, and I'd made that choice to be able to learn from everything that's gone through my life, to to experience this, so then I can be the guardian angel for others, to support them in any way. But yeah, that in a nutshell, I think.
Yeah, but it makes so much sense now that you would choose to be the guardian angel and identify yourself as the guardian angel that puts her wings around those who work with you to protect them, because without knowing the piece before of how you were brought up, it made less sense to me. But now it's so understandable, knowing that people suffer like that, the way they suffer, that that suffering, and you're able to be there to sort of help them through, and be there to be the person that you didn't have in your life growing up. And it always plagues me to think that the church, which is the other place that we should find refuge, where people should be kind and loving and gentle and good, are filled with so many people that are strict and mean and not, I mean, how is that possible? And I guess it's true in every religion, but it's the caricatures of those old nuns and especially old nun teachers, who are just nasty and mean.
Yeah, and it's funny you say that, because totally off conversation, but I was called after doing one of the hit talks the other night to watch a little bit of TV and chill, and I don't watch TV very often. And so my husband put Netflix on, and the first thing that came up was Warrior Nun, and I was
Oh,
like,
wow.
oh, do you know that in the Mayan calendar today it's Yellow Warrior Day, and we have to watch that. Oh my gosh, Danny, I watched it until 2 o'clock in the morning, series after series after series. And then the following day, I was like, we've got to finish it off. And it was brilliant. It was, again, a bit about the church and these nuns that have turned into warriors to save people and things. And so
Oh,
it's
wow.
definitely worth watching. But as you say
Okay.
that, it's just like, I'm now a warrior nun.
I like that. That's going to be part of your new definition. Um, so So the power and the strength that you felt in some ways was to just show the world that you were other than what they thought they were, and to prove not only to them and to yourself that you are more than what your cards were dealt. And somehow, from what you said, is that you understood that you chose that, and that you chose to come in. For people who find that a little bit of a hard pill to swallow, because they don't want to either take responsibility for that, or it just doesn't seem fair. What would you say to people that are in situations like that? Because making a statement like I realized that I chose to come in with an alcoholic mother, I chose to come in with an abusive father, puts takes away the blame and the victimization of it, and takes responsibility for it. But how would you say that to somebody who's going through that situation now, who doesn't feel that?
Well, I wouldn't have been able to say that myself many, many years ago. It was very much like, oh, I went through this and I went through that, and that's why I've gone off the rails and done this. That's why I've done that. That's why I've jumped from job to job. Even though all the jobs and the businesses that I had, majority, I've been very entrepreneurial. My family used to say to me, "Oh, what's Vicky's next whim? She moves from one thing to another thing to another thing. She's never committed. She's never settled, and all this sort of stuff." In my career, and I used to think, well, okay, it's because I've always got something to learn. It's the next step. It's something else to put into my toolbox, all these different things. So I wouldn't have been able to say that to myself or to anybody else that is in that situation, because they've got to come to that realization themselves.
Yes.
What I'm there to do is to hold their space and be there for them and listen to them. And actually, sometimes not everybody's in the same situation, but life is a journey. Life has its ups and life has its downs, and it's just having somebody there to trust, to really, because you sometimes can't, you can't have these kind of conversations that you do sometimes with your husband or your wife or your mum or your dad, or people like that. So it's having that safe space with no judgment.
There's so many things that I want the listener to just hear in what Vicky's saying. There's so many things, and I'm just going to try and highlight a couple of them, but I want you to go back and listen to them for yourself. Because already, if the podcast would end right now, I've gotten more value than I could ever imagine from what she said. Because so many times we think our lives are dictated by the conditions that we come into. So many times we feel that we're victimized by the life that we have, and we stay in that victimized mode. So many times we don't realize there's another perspective that can give us hope and give us inspiration and can transform us, which is why she has hit talks, right? Hope, inspiration, transformation. So many times that it is so easy to place blame on outer situations. And so many times when we go through those transformations, we are born again like, and want to tell other people what to do and how to do them. And the gentleness and the ease and the beauty of what Vicky just said of, I couldn't have done that, I couldn't say anything to anybody, but I can hold the space for people to go through what they go through. Absolutely beautiful. And if that's all you hear from this, and you'll hear more, I think you've got a lot to chew on for these days. Yes. What are you most proud of in your life?
Me.
Tell me.
Yeah, me. Do you know? And again, that's a new thing that I've had the confidence to say, because many times it would have been that I was proud of my husband, which I am, and I'm proud of my children, which I am, and I'm proud of what I've achieved, which I am. However, there are things again outside of me. And, every single day I'm growing, every single day I'm learning, and every single day, I'm forgiving myself and I'm loving myself more, and I'm bringing more, amazing people into my space, and I'm helping people with hope, inspiration, transformation, and love. And so it's taken me a long time, but for me to actually say that I am actually proud of me.
Well, again, underline, underscore. Can you, as a listening audience, make that same statement? Asked what you're most proud of, can you forego all your accomplishments? And can you just be proud of yourself? What a beautiful statement to make. What do
Thank
you
you. But
absolutely go?
no, sorry, because in some of the interviews and podcasts that I go on, people say to me, "Who inspires you?" And so it's the same question, because we always look outside of ourselves of who inspires us, and then I look and I say, "Well, who inspires me? Well, me." And they're like, "What?" And I'm saying, because yeah, I see other people that are inspirational, but what I see in them that makes me inspired, I have inside of me. That's
Yes.
Otherwise I wouldn't see it, because we're mirrors. So it all comes down to us. And as I say, years ago, Danny, I would have said that I was an egotistic, and who do I think I am to say things like that, or people would have said that to me. But when you get to a space that you know that you're serving and what you're here for, and it's not from ego, it's purely from heart, that you can have the confidence to say that, yeah, I inspire me.
And you can tell when people are speaking from ego, and you can tell when people are speaking from truth. And I mean, at least I can. And there is no ego in that statement, but just that honest sort of almost gut wrenching, real beauty of just being able to go through the battlefield of knowing what you know, and being able to now say, boy, I'm really proud of myself when I look back on my life, that this is what, that I'm proud of me, that I did all these things. What a beautiful place to be. Thank you so much. What are you most scared of?
I would say that I'm most scared of not achieving what I was put on this earth to do. Now, again, because of the work that I've done, is I honestly know deep down inside my heart there's a lot of things that I've been put on this earth to do. One is to lead my daughter, because my daughter is going to be even more inspiring than me. She's going to be a golden warrior, but that's her path anyway. And again, my son, is they've got their own journey to take, but I'm here to not mix things up, but I speak a lot about the 7 generations past and the future and the next generation. So me making shifts and changes in my life then is going to make shifts and changes in their life. So for instance, all the programming, all the DNA structure, all the limited beliefs, the barriers and the blockages and things that I've had from my childhood and from my generations past, it's time for me to actually break those chains and do the work, so it doesn't then ancestrally pass in the future generations of my children, my grandchildren, my great grandchildren, and make that shift. But I also know that I'm here to do so much bigger things in the world. And I've always said that, well, I say now, is that I'm going to live to 333. So I still have many, many years ahead of me to actually achieve those things.
So, Eastern teachings also speak about when a person becomes enlightened, they enlighten 7 generations behind them and 7 generations in
Yes.
front of them.
Yes.
I get that you get that. Can you talk a little bit about how that's possible? Because there's some people that are caught in the timeline and say, how would it be possible to make changes now that would influence 7 generations behind us, as well as 7 generations in front of us? Can you speak about that at all?
Yeah, well, there's a story, and you know, one thing that I wrote a blog about it, is that there is a song called, I think I might have said it to in one of my talks, but there's a song called Del Shannon Runaway, and it was written in the 50s or 60s. I was born in the mid 70s, and I know every single word to that song. I've never owned the album, and and it comes on now, and I can sing every single word, and never owned the album. So so if you think about it, then what's happened is that obviously in my childhood, whether or not I remember at all, it was played and played and played, and so it's now in my subconscious, and then now I remember every single word. A lot of the a lot of the what goes on in our life is programmed into our subconscious. We only use 5% of our brain. The 95% of our brain is subconscious. But there's also, we talk about generations past, there's a story that this friend of mine, and she was invited us around for a ham roast. So this is like pig joint, ham joint, same in America. And as she was cooking it, she always cuts the ends off the joint. And I'm a chef by trade, so that's one of the first things that I trained to do, was that when I left school, was to train to be a chef. And I would say they're the most tastiest parts, the ends. So when they're cooked up, they're the really tastiest parts. Why do you cut the ends off? And she says, well, I've got no idea. My mum always used to do it.
Well,
And I said, but is there a reasoning? And she says, no, I've got no idea. And I said, well, ask your mum. So anyway, she, so she came back to me. She, well, I asked my mum why she cut the ends off. And her mum turned around and says, I've got no idea. My grandmother, my mum used to do it. And her mum was still alive. She was like 96 or something. And I said, well, do us a favor, find out from your gran. And the reason being is because her gran saucepan was always too small for her to
oh
fit the
wow,
joint in.
and
So she
that,
always used to cut the ends off. And so that's something so simple that just comes generations past. And so you've just, and again, with the quantum field and the energy that that we're in, it's just an easier example to actually understand that it's really easy for this to flow through. And that's good things, bad things.
and so I clearly understand that generationally we're handed down. In India, they tell a story about a priest who was conducting a ceremony, and And a dog wandered into the holy place where he was conducting the ceremony. So he took a rope and he tied the dog to the tree, so the dog wouldn't be on the holy circle of area. And over time, what happened is the ceremony was handed down to generations. And the people forgot actually what the ceremony was, but they said it seemed like the most important thing was you have to tie a dog to a tree in order to get this thing happening. And so I
Yeah.
understand that those things. The question I'm sort of asking is, and I don't know if I even understand it or if you understand it, how in the quantum field of time can a change in this moment reverberate back 7 generations to change the consciousness of 7 generations before us? Does that
Well, yeah, we're not changing that. We can't change the past. You know, we're in the present. So what's happened is the past has actually come into, you know, into our field. You know, making a break in a lineage is changing the future.
gotcha?
And so in the quantum field, you know, it's how understanding the viewers are as far as the quantum field is concerned, without me getting too much into the science of it. But when we energetically make a break within the quantum field of our barriers, our beliefs, then we're shifting the energetic vortex of what's going in the future generations. And so again, just like small examples, you know, when you change the way that you speak, you change the way that you perhaps do things, then if you've got family around you and you've got children, for instance, and you continually doing it, you see the changes in them doing it, because you know we mirror people.
Absolutely.
And so really in a without going too much into the quantum stuff, unless people really understand the quantum, is that we're shifting the past, we're healing the past. And this is the work that I do, is kind of, you know, healing, you know, dissolving and, you know, saying goodbye with love and forgiveness of everything from the past. Because, you know, our parents and our grandparents and our great grandparents, they did the best that they could with the tools that they had, the knowledge that they had. So that, you know, that they did do the best that they can. And you know, from
Yes.
the different generations, now we have these tools. Now we have, you know, the universe has opened up to give us so much more enlightenment and so much more communication skills. And you could say that, you know, the cosmos has given us so much more intelligence, that, you know, we're now in a situation that we can forgive the past, and we can use all this intelligence and all this knowledge that we have now to reprogram the future, so then it doesn't carry on in one lineage. Does that make sense?
Tons of sense. And just to qualify it a little bit, if it doesn't, you tell me if I'm understanding it correctly. The past represents a lot of weight that we carry around on ourselves. And when we can forgive that past, and when we can let go of that past, it's almost like a rocket dropping the first capsule that's got it to the place in the sky where it can go, but then it doesn't need that. It's just weight at that point, and it drops it midair, and then the rocket just takes off further because it's not carrying that weight anymore. It feels like that's what you're saying is happening in our lives, that when people can come across someone like you who can release some of those past bondages and burdens and stories and forgive and help them forgive those things, then we're no longer carrying that weight around, and we can soar. The same amount of energy that we put out before doesn't have the burden of the weight that we've been carrying, and so we can go faster, cleaner, easier towards where we're trying to get to. Would that be correct?
An absolutely fantastic analogy. And it's very much as well, is that it, it's us taking responsibility. So again, you know, what I say is that I chose this life, and whether or not people understand that or not, but you know, my belief is that, you know, I chose this life, I chose this body. So everything that's gone on in the past, then I have to take responsibility for. So the things that I've done that I'm not proud of, the situations that I've been in that I'm not proud of, the situations that have been challenging, you know, I've got to give myself love, I've got to forgive myself, I've got to kind of just be a little bit easier on myself, to say, Vic, that was just that happened because it's another lesson. It's something to teach you. It's part of your journey. And now you're aware of it. So without awareness, that's one of the key things I believe is awareness. It's being aware of situations and being aware that, okay, whatever is happening in your environment really is down to you. If it's good or it's bad, it's down to you. And it's being aware of that with love.
And it's the piece that I feel that you bring to the table is that could be a heavy decision, because when we take responsibility for our life, sometimes we're not proud of what we've done and we can beat ourselves up because we
Yes.
tend to be very hard on ourselves.
Yes.
But there's a choice that we can make in that moment where we can choose now to forgive ourselves, forgive the situation, and let go of it. Why do you think people choose the other choice, to put themselves down so much and to be so hard on themselves? Why do you think we choose that choice rather than the choice of forgiveness, which frees us up?
Yeah. Well, I chose that choice many times. It was very much, it was always in my environment's fault. It was somebody else's fault. It's so easy to blame others. And I think, again, that's programming. That's very much, the whole of society and generational. It's so much easier to blame others when we're not really taught how to take responsibility. And, you know, it is it's something that you grow into, and to take responsibility of yourself, take responsibility of your environment, and take because you can't change anybody else. I can't change my parents, I can't change my past. The only thing I can do is change me, and that's it. I can just be responsible for me. I can't be responsible for the person driving the car. I can't be responsible for what my husband or my children want to do. And I can be a guide, but I can only be responsible for me.
So let's put that into current affairs. Right now in America, for instance, we're going through huge coronavirus numbers increases. We're going through protests around equality for race. It wasn't long ago that we went through protests around equality for women. I mean, it's been a fairly tumultuous set of years here, right? I mean, it started with the Me Too movement, maybe, where people who we always thought were good people were then suddenly accused of treating women disrespectfully. Now we're questioning. Every single one of us is questioning what what we really believe about race, and how we look at people of other color. Um, and we're also being surrounded by this invisible virus that's isolating many of us, and those who are and growing amongst us. Talk to me about taking responsibility for our actions within those places, if you can.
Yeah, this is like for me opening a can of worms, which in this podcast I don't think is a great thing to get into. I
Okay.
do look at the bigger picture of the world, that I do believe that energetically a lot of what's going on is here to test us as a race. I do believe that the race that the human race at the moment is evolving, and a lot of things that's going on is to say is to test us. We're learning so much from it. We're learning who not to be. We're learning, perhaps maybe, who to be. We're having the time with the coronavirus to actually spend time with family, spend time to, you know, a, a lot of people, especially in my field, they're using let's say the pandemic of this virus as a positive. Yes, we have to pivot and turn our businesses online. Usually I travel in the world speaking on stages, but you've got to travel, you've got to pivot, and using that time to go within, spend time with the children, spend time with your families, spend time with your loved ones, read books, do gardening, do the things like we weren't doing, because the way the world was evolving. And the more that we can spend time in mother nature, the more that we can spend time with ourselves, the more we can spend our times in the books, which loads of people are doing. So again, it's going back that I personally can't go and change what's going on in the world. And again, I can change me. And so when we come out of this virus, this pandemic, whatever's going on, I'm just a brighter light. I'm a stronger person because I've been spending time nurturing myself, nurturing Mother Earth, nurturing my knowledge and my wisdom and my education and my, you know, my body and my being and my vessel. And so it's people's choice. They can, some people might, you know, like to go out there and fight with the Black Lives Matters. Some people like to go and do, you know, all these things. That's fine. There's no right and wrong for that person.
Yeah.
So it's down to an individual choice.
I love something that my buddy Wayne Dyer once said, that when you change the way you see the world you see
Yes,
changes, right?
yes,
And it really just comes down to a matter of numbers. Like, we think that our voice doesn't matter and what we do doesn't matter. But when enough of us do, what we know is right, when enough of us take the time and have the courage to change the way we see our world, the world we will see will change. It will change for us individually, and it will change for us collectively. And I agree with you. I think these moments are tailor made, that coronavirus would come to give us the space to not occupy ourselves with all the busyness, and then Black Lives
yes.
Matters would come to make us really reevaluate what is it we really believe about color. And
Because we're all human, you know, we're whether or not we're, you know, we're black, we're white, you know, blue, you know, yellow like Homer Simpson. Do you know what I mean? It's, you know, it, you know, we've all got a soul, we've all got a heart, and it's, you know, it's, yeah.
I
I see beyond it all. I see it from here.
yeah, I love that, and I love the saying that's sort of become popular now, that we're not the black race or the white race, we're the human race, and we're just one race. And
Yes,
so
we are just all one. But
let's
again, it's everyone's journey.
totally, let's segue a little bit, because I know in through conversations that we've had before that there was a part of you that was involved in the business world, and then there was a part of you that made a decision to go into the spiritual world, and there was some space between those. And I just read on your website how it's this beautiful, beautiful place that you're now putting yourself in, as being one of the bridges to take people, to join people from those two places together. Can you talk to me about the pivot point that allowed you to go from business person, spiritual person with no bit with disregarding business, to now bridging those two areas?
Yeah, it's something that, because during my early successes, it was very masculine driven. I was very much in a male corporate, male dominated world. And as a woman, you know, in a corporate drive, climbing the success ladder, you know, you had to have this like drive and determinations, and again, provingness. But then when I decided to, that was it, give it all up and sell my businesses, close them, you know, dissolve them, you know, sometimes with a huge loss, but I just wanted to clear, I wanted to go to ground zero. I wanted to clear everything.
Yeah.
And so I think it maybe in the personality with me, it's all in or not in kind of thing. So then when I went across and done my teaching, I traveled the world and sought out the best coaches and mentors, you know, in the spiritual realm, and, you know, doing what I say on the woo woo world. You know, as you know, we spoke about, many people would message me from my business world and say, what are you doing talking about all this woo woo stuff? Get back to what you know.
Yes.
And I was like, but we're all spiritual beings. And so I kind of went over that, into that space, and behind the scenes, hidden, I was still doing property stuff. I was still, you know, looking after my properties. I was still developing, doing things like that. But I was hiding behind a mask, because I thought I had to be this angel that was up there, you know, doing all these things, and not doing the, you know, the stuff with the builders and the businesses and all the rest of it. And I always knew, and going back from like years and years back, when I used to do my journaling, I always knew that I was the bridge. And to the point that when I used to see some of my coaches saying that they were the bridge between two worlds, I used to say, I told you that I was the bridge, thinking there was only one bridge in the world, you know what I mean? And so it was a little bit of a separation. And then we had this conversation, and, you know, and you said to me that, you know, you saw the separation in between the both worlds. I'd already started building my website, and the website had, you know, a lot of the stuff in there. And I give credit to you, because after a conversation, again, people have told me so many times, but you have to be in the right time for you to actually open your ears and listen and take action on it. And even though many people had said to me, bring the business into the spiritual, bring the spiritual into the business and things, it just wasn't the right time when anybody else told me. But when we had this conversation and you were saying about the separation, it's like, okay, well, I've just been told again. So Vic, take bloody action on this. So it was that, say the let's say, there's lots of nails that are being hammered in, and
Yeah.
then when we had this conversation, it was just like, bang, come on, do it. So
Yeah.
again, I thank you.
And I didn't even realize that, but I appreciate you saying that. What an honor. Uh, and for me, I often think that sometimes it's the straw that breaks the camel's back. And that normally has a negative connotation of meaning that we fall down and we lose. But that same straw can break the camel's back to lean towards a positive direction. And so I think I was just another piece of straw on a haystack that was really ready to move that way. And it could have been me, it could have been anything, but it was just that one little drop of straw that you realized, hey, that I can do this. Something just came to me, which is interesting. Do you think that some of your desire to leave behind that world and make it in a spiritual world came from being a child where people said you couldn't do this, and you just wanted to prove to them that you could do this? Like, there seems like in certain, with the Catholic nun that you spoke about, and with the cards that you were dealt, that you honestly said you chose to deal yourself, which is beautiful. But there was this determination to say, I'm going to show myself, I'm going to show them that I can do this. Do you think any of that existed for you in the transition from uh in the trans I just something popped up on my screen, in the transition from going from business to going to spirit, and that you actually just needed to just say to them, I'm going to show them that I can go into the spiritual world and just do that? Or is that
And
just
I think,
completely?
no, I think there was in a little way. And I was searching, and I always knew there was something better. And I did sacred medicine ayahuasca about 18 months ago, and it was very profound. I'm not saying it was the most amazing experience, because
Yeah, it's
when
terrible.
you first do something, but something that I would never change ever in my life. It was definitely a pivotal point in my life. Um, but I was seeking out the best teachers, and then so there was this kind of provingness, I think, as well, to start off with, because I certified to be a quantum healer, I certified with a Hay House to be an angel tarot card reader, I certified with Ho'oponopono, I certified with doing all these different things. And so I was getting all these certifications to say, okay, look, I can do this now, I can be a spiritual person. But in all essence, then again, in the journey, it's like, we're all spiritual beings, and it's how it's again what cards you're dealt, and again what opportunities you take, and how you open your doors. Because again, I don't really, we spoke about this with titles. I've got to have a bio, I've got to have a title or something. But the reason that when people meet me on stages or meet me around the world and they ask me what I do, I say I'm a galactic unicorn or a guardian angel, because it's these titles that I don't want to be defined by. I want to be defined by people feeling my energy, for people actually getting to know me, or wanting to get to know me. And so having that, let's say, provingness coming across to, let's say, the spiritual world, that was there. But I say that I was also became aware of that. And then I just thought, again, Vic, this is something that was just a teaching to you.
Yeah.
Now you know that you have everything that you need to do, that you need to serve, you need to offer. You have everything inside of you. You just have to have trust, and you just have to have faith in the divine, in the universe, in God, whatever the title people use. And then when you have that trust, and when you have that faith, and when you are purely just acting from the soul and acting from love, then magic does happen. And, years ago, if I actually heard myself now speaking in the future of me sat here saying, yeah, magic will happen if you just trust,
Yeah.
I think I would have locked myself up.
But so why do you think it takes us so long to convince ourselves of what we already know?
Because we have to learn. It's a divine journey. And if somebody had told me what I know now, 3 years ago, 4 years, 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I wouldn't have been in the right place at the right time
Gotcha.
to accept that. And again, in the future, somebody might tell me something today and I'm not ready for that, but they could tell me the same thing in a month's time, a week's time, and then I'm ready for that, because we're all on our own journey. And this is the thing, it's having, we always look up to gurus, we always look up to people and think, oh, I want to do that, oh, they're doing amazing, they're doing amazing. That's their time in their journey.
Yeah.
It's not for us to have comparisonitis, which is the word that I made up, for us to continue compare of what they're doing, because it's our journey for us to enjoy. And when we're grateful for where we are, we're grateful for the journey that we're on, we're grateful for the surroundings, we're grateful for the past that we've had, however good or however bad it would be, and we look forward to the future, then I don't know what else there is.
I love it. What's one thing that you've been really surprised with in the work that you're doing?
The changes in the ladies that I work with, uh, for not getting them, but supporting them to trust. Because from a female perspective, not from everybody, I'm just talking for myself and I'm talking from a lot of people around us, it's quite hard for us to trust, because we're so worried about being judged. We're so worried about what people think about us. And I'm sure it's the same for men as well, but it's having that outside influences, and a lot about judgment. And so that's something, is really, really seeing the shift of how they can trust themselves, and how they can trust that it doesn't really matter what others people think of us. It's what we think of ourselves. It's how we love ourselves. It's how we forgive ourselves, because we're not taught to love ourselves. Because if we would, we used to say, oh, you love yourself, who do you think you are? Oh, look at her, oh my gosh, who does she think she is? All these things. And social media doesn't help, where you've got all these pristine women and men that look absolutely fantastic, and they've got the life on Love Island and all these amazing reality TVs, which is not really reality, which doesn't really serve our younger generation.
Yes. Yeah, well, and very few people show the other side of their life, which is also exists at the same time on that same social media. They only show
Exactly. Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
is there something I should have asked you that you want to say that I haven't asked you yet, that you now have the platform to say whatever it is you would like to say?
No, I'm just, I'm blessed for the conversation. I'm blessed for the connection. And no, I, I believe that people that are going to watch this podcast are directed to it for a reason, because everything happens for a reason. People watch things right the way through for a reason, or they stop and start at a perfect reason. And if this conversation that we've had can give any hope or inspiration or transformation to anybody out there, then great. And just know that everybody that's watching this, and to believe that they really, really, really do have it all inside of themselves, and they really are able to love themselves and to do exactly what they want to do.
I love it. My final question, I want to, and then I'll get your data, how people can get in touch with you and reach you, and all that will be in the show notes. But I close every podcast by asking this question: when you look out into the world today, at the world that is this the world you always dreamed of handing over to your children and your children's children?
No.
So we know around the idea of momentum that as the longer we let something go, the more it builds momentum. And then it becomes harder to stand in the force of that momentum, because we're not only changing it, we're changing now a force that has been generated by it. What's one thing that you might recommend to people right now that someone could do today and continue to do every day that might switch that momentum or halt that momentum or reverse that momentum, so that in 5 years, 1 year, 6 months, when we ask the question to another person, is this the world that you would like to hand to your children and your children's children? They might unequivocally say yes.
It all starts with us. So I would say that the more that we as a collective can believe in ourselves, can love ourselves, can forgive ourselves, and be grateful for what we've got, then that's what I would say.
Beautiful. Vikki, I'm sure people are going to want to get in touch with you, and we'll put most of your all your contact information in. But what's the surefire way to get in touch with Vikki Thomas for people who want to either work with you or learn more about what you're doing? What's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, I use Facebook more than anything else, which is Vikki Thomas, Vikki. So yeah, my name is totally different. I remember at school crying because people used to spell my name wrong all the time, Vicki or Vicky. But yeah, they can. I'm searchable, so it's the Vikki, and Hit Talks is another way. So I would urge anybody. It's a free platform for people. You know, you've been an absolutely amazing guest on there, and we've had our honest inner truth conversations, which people are loving, as
Thank you.
well as that. Yeah, the details are down below, and yeah, I'm a free bird out there.
I love that. And so all of those will be in the show notes, and you'll be able to contact her. I would like to just take 1 minute or 2 minutes to summarize. Um, what a treat to have people like this in the world. And it's even made more of a treat because the circumstances upon which they entered the world were not with a silver spoon in their mouth. What a treat to hear somebody own up and take responsibility and say, this was my creation. The moment I realized that I wrote the script to the movie that I'm starring in, or I wrote the book that I am a part of, that moment changes everything in the world that you see. Because look at the beauty of what happens when no longer does Vikki blame the world around her. It'd be so easy to blame the mom and to blame the father. And you go through, I'm sure she went through stages, years of that, or days of that, or months of that. But then to own that space, to say, no, this is the way I wrote it, and I wrote it for a reason. And that reason sets the stage for the work that I'm about to do with other people, so that I can understand them, so that I can feel them, so that I can be that guardian angel that surrounds them with the wings of protection and hope and inspiration and trust, so that nobody has to walk through the life that I had to walk through without knowing somebody is there watching over them, caring for them, giving them the space to grow in their own space, to do what they have to do, and inspiring them to know that there's always somebody here, because she didn't grow up with that. So, what a beautiful example of a life lived when someone who never had that can become the beacon of hope for others who don't have it as well. And she can make a line in the sand to say that if you feel this way and you need somebody to comfort you, if you need somebody to watch over you, if you need the guardian angel wings to surround you, I'm here for you. Just come to me. I want to thank you from the bottom of my heart for the work that you do, for the being that you are, for the beauty that you've created through Hit Talks and through your conversations of hope, yeah, and inner truth discussions. Um, it's my honor to know you, Vikki Thomas, and I thank you
Oh,
for being
thank
here
you.
with us.
No, thank you so much for having me. So it's a blessing to be connected, and
Absolutely.
the universe connect people for a reason. The universe delivers for a reason.
Absolutely. For those of you who watch and listen to this podcast, thank you so much for being here, for giving us your time and listening. Um, Share it with your friends, this talk in particular. Share it around. Let people know it. If you feel to, give it a rating on iTunes. Write a review of it, and please share it around with people. Okay. Thank you so much again for your time. God bless you. And until next Mosaic podcast, stay connected. Okay. Ciao.